Hi, I'm Louise and this is my Thursday Weekly Live. And we are going to be looking again at behaviour of people, not people or how they look in themselves, but what their behaviour is. And we're going to spend 10 minutes today looking at how you read a document virtually using the context of the G20 and global leaders. Now, you might have heard my moustache story. You know, I've got a friend who actually did an interview wearing a moustache. She got the job wearing a moustache because she didn't know how to get rid of it from the virtual screen. And, you know, I find that's an extreme example, but we're not very good at knowing how to manage ourselves in this space. So with reading a document, what I want to do is have a look at what is the gold standard and what are some examples? I've got 5 examples from the G20. And the idea here is to observe them, but the reason we're observing them is so that we can improve ourselves. So what is the gold standard? The gold standard is this. The gold standard is that you have a teleprompter where the camera is. You have a teleprompter and that's there. Of course, if you're out in a big presentation, you'll have a teleprompter both sides so that you can look both sides to read the document. But in this particular context, the G20, it's straight ahead. All right, that's easy. What's the tricky bit? The tricky bit is that if you choose not to use the teleprompter, which most of us don't have, then what you do is you read the document in silence. You then look up and speak. Now, this is something that's a challenge for people, but I remember when I was at school, we did a speed reading test. And what you could find is that you can read more than you think you can. You really can. You go, no, I don't trust. Read, speak. And you just get that habit of doing that and trusting yourself. And you cannot look at a document and read. We might as well all go and have a coffee. We're speaking to people. You look, you read. The third option is that you can actually ask permission or state what you're doing. You can get away with any behaviour. So I have some notes just here on my right, and I look at those, and that's pretty obvious that I'm looking at those and not looking away in any way. So either you look at the document, look up, or you use the teleprompter, basically. So what examples do we have? Let's have a look at our first one, which is Salman bin Abdulaziz. And this is what you do when you actually have enough money to do whatever you like. Here we go.
إن التعاون الدولي والعمل المشترك هو السبيل الأمثل لتجاوز الأزمات وينبغي علينا التركيز.
So clearly that is not a great example of what we need to do. The next one is Angela Merkel. And Angela Merkel is fascinating. I'll leave that screen up. Angela Merkel is fascinating. It's partly her language that defines her style, and it's partly her and her skills. So her language, of course, is German. She's the head of the German nation. And I remember learning Rapunzel, Rapunzel, you know, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair. In German, that's Rapunzel, Rapunzel, lass deine Haare herunterfallen. You know, it's just got that flavour to it. So the German's always going to have that harsher flavour to it. But she chooses the teleprompter, so she looks straight ahead. Her gesture choice is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So she just opens her arms from the middle here. She has no movement whatsoever. Her eye contact is fabulous, as you would expect from a world leader. And her mouth is closed. So we get a slight opening like that with no movement at all. So when she says, I therefore appeal to all of you to support this important initiative, she says, daher bitte ich Sie, diese wichtige Initiative zu unterstützen. And just the lips move, nothing else moves. So Angela Merkel, let's have a look.
Einzudämmen muss der Zugang zur Impfung für jedes Land möglich und bezahlbar sein. Dazu reichen die bisher zugesagten Mittel noch nicht aus. Daher bitte ich Sie alle, diese wichtige Initiative zu unterstützen. Diese kurzfristige Hilfe ist in unser aller Interesse. Und das gilt auch dafür, langfristig die globale Pandemievorsorge zu verbessern.
Great, thank you, Angela. And then my favorite, Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is a rule breaker and a risk taker. And I put it to you that when he read his response to coronavirus, which is what the leaders are doing here, that he had no idea what was on that paper, that he is an improviser like you wouldn't believe. And he decides actually not to use a teleprompter, but to read the document. And he knows the rules about looking down and looking up. So he starts off, this is probably number 4,000 he's done for that day. And he throws himself forward onto the desk. I mean, this is a man who's going for, quite forceful, look at me. That is extraordinary in this position. Now, normally power would come from the lower body if you want to be powerful as a leader, but he is exhausted. He throws himself on the front of the table, man at the end of his energy battery, and he starts to read. He can still do things like have a statement. He goes, build back better from this crisis. He makes a bit of a statement there. But then he carries on and he goes, our fates, and he starts to and then he goes, what on earth am I doing? And he second guesses himself and he pulls back, are in each other's hands. And then he drops back his energy. He goes, oh yeah, well, whatever, I'll read it. So he reads for a bit and he just boredom starts tapping the table, bored. Then he goes, okay, that was page 1. Page 2, he just moves his eyes over there. Page 2, no disguise. And then he goes for the big finish. I'd like to see G20 nations collectively step up and support this. And then in the last word, he just falls off effort, as if he's going, anyone got a coffee or something? As though he's breaking off. He just loses that. He collapses because I think he's exhausted. Who wouldn't be? I wouldn't be a leader for all the rice in China at the moment. Let's not mention China. So the good things that he does is that he has clearly no idea what's coming up, but he does it. And his staff around him must know that they can put anything in front of him and trust him to do the job. Next is that even though he doesn't know what's going on, he never stops his voice. He just keeps going. And there are some indicators there in his body that he's got no idea what he's doing, but his voice keeps going. And the voice keeping going is one of the major skills of trust. When will we learn that? He uses it beautifully. And he also has a musical flow. He starts off with a bang. He then brings it down for the reading, but he knows he has to finish with a bang, so he goes up. And as I said, he just collapses at the end. But he really does know what to do. So let's have a look at Boris.
It's only by joining forces and working together that we will defeat coronavirus and build back better from this crisis. Our fates are in each other's hands.
Yeah.
The G20 committed in March to do whatever it takes to overcome the pandemic and protect lives and livelihoods. As we meet this weekend, we must hold ourselves to account for that promise. We've seen some encouraging developments on vaccines in the past few weeks, which may offer a path out of the gloom. The UK has committed to equitable global access for any vaccine, and I would like to see the G20 nations collectively step up and support that effort.
Yep, who's got a coffee, basically. So that was him. The absolute gold standard, however, was Emmanuel Macron. So if you want a gold standard, this is it. He uses the teleprompter. He has a flowing stream of air. Now, of course, his language helps him. Nostra strategy. I mean, how gorgeous is that? He breathes. He uses his hands. He talks about things over here, things over here. He has a musicality. He goes up, he goes down. He does not do that monotonality. He has a very healthy vocal production. And he has a message. He actually says at the end, le moment est venu. The time has come. I mean, how fabulous is that? Let's have a listen. My mouse. Come on.
Mais un deuxième combat, plus difficile encore, doit être mené. C'est celui de l'accès universel aux technologies de santé contre la Covid-19. Serons-nous prêts, lorsqu'un premier vaccin sera mis sur le marché, à en garantir l'accès à l'échelle planétaire et à éviter à tout prix le scénario d'un monde à 2 vitesses, où seuls les plus riches
Oh,
pourraient se protéger du virus et reprendre une vie normale. Notre stratégie d'allocation des premières doses de vaccins sera-t-elle construite en fonction des urgences et des priorités sanitaires à l'échelle de notre planète
here's his
ou du seul pouvoir d'achat des pays?
message.
Sera-t-elle vraiment multilatérale et collaborative dans un cadre construit
Here it
ensemble
comes.
ou répondra-t-elle à des logiques d'influence, des intérêts financiers, des égoïsmes nationaux? Le moment est venu de transformer
yes.
l'approche conceptuelle du bien public mondial en une réalité concrète.
Um die Pandemie einzudämmen,
Great man. I just love that. How brilliant. So they are 4 examples from the G20. When it comes to Australia and Scott Morrison, we don't seem to be important enough to actually get that onto YouTube. So I just went to YouTube and found the latest posting with Scott Morrison reading something. And I'd like to finish off with that. I'd like you to notice the condescension as he said, this will finish at midnight. That's 11:59. You know, for you who are an idiot. He actually, rather than look at the document and look up to speak, looks at the document to speak and then looks up for silence. Speak, 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 speak. Silence, which is actually back the front. And then he stumbles over the words. Even then, he stumbles over the words. I'll leave you to just look at a few seconds of that.
For the 2 weeks of their mandatory self-isolation before they are able to return to their home.
To help out, the PM offered up the men and women of the Australian Defence Force.
The ADF will be there to put boots on the ground to support them in their enforcement efforts, and I thank the ADF for their great support in turning up.
Okay, great. Well, the last thing I'll leave you with is that if you have something to show, like a sign, then you actually leave that still. You move, but the document actually sits still. You don't stand still and shake the document up and down. These are the skills we don't learn. You know, our Prime Minister does it. What hope do we have when we have very few good examples around us? So I'm trying to stop the share screen. Have I stopped the share screen? No. Stop share. Thank you very much. Stop share. The point is that we're observing people. These are our global leaders. What are they doing? And what could you be doing to be better at your virtual communication? I leave that with you for today. Thank you. And